Billy, it's official. The Red Wings have acquired Jeff Petry from the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for Gustav Lindstrom and a conditional fourth round pick in 2025. Now, a couple of things to note is that Montreal will be retaining a portion of that contract, which results in Detroit only paying for 37.5% of the total Petry contract, which isn't even set to expire until the end of 2025. So we have this season and next potentially with Petry. And the other major note for that deal is that the Red Wings actually have two fourth round picks in 2025, one of them being theirs and one being Boston's. Montreal will receive whichever pick is later when that time comes. So, Billy, what are you thinking? This is looking pretty good, huh?
Yeah, first things first, this makes this team better. And that's what I think is most important going into this year. And to speak on Gustav Lindstrom, I'm pretty unemotional about him as a player. He wasn't really cracking our lineup too often. He wasn't showing anything impressive. Similar to Zadina, probably just needs a new place to try to make it. And again, we're sending them to teams that are worse than us, so it does give them the opportunity to do so. Montreal has the opportunity to get something valuable out of Lindstrom, only 24 years old, had the 1-year contract. In Detroit, we're getting Jeff Petry, 2 years at 2.3 mil. He's 35 years old. It's a bit old, but I think he brings a lot of good. He brings some concerns with it, of course. Every trade's going to do that. And we're going to dive into that a little bit, but I want to talk about what we like about him, right? We're going to look into his stats a little bit, and that he's a solid offensive presence. He had a really good streak of hitting double-digit goals for a few years out there. His assists have stayed consistent through this as the goals have dropped off, and he had a power play presence. And something that I think surprised you and I a little bit is you asked me, Billy, is 2 goals, 7 assists for a defenseman good? And I was like, I don't think so. Like, without looking too much across the league, I guess I would say no. And then we started to do some research and looking around, and that's actually pretty solid.
Yeah, we looked at a few different teams. We looked at the bottom of the barrel teams, and we looked at some high caliber offensive power play teams. And the fact of the matter is, the teams in general don't have a ton of defensemen picking up power play points. So it seems like there's just not a large variety of defensemen being put on power play. It seems like once you have your guys, that's who you stick to. And when you look at the Red Wings, all that we have left on our roster in terms of defensemen from last year that had points on the power play is Mo Seider, who had a goal and 14 assists, and then Jake Wallman, who had 2 assists. There are no other defensemen that were on the Red Wings last year still on the team with any power play points. Hronek had some decent points, is gone, and Gostisbehere, who we've acquired, had some power play points. So that just tells you we're going into this season before this trade with only 2 defensemen with any history of consistency on the power play. So this pickup absolutely fills that void that we've opened up.
Yeah, I was going to say, when we were making our lines and I was kind of looking down the lineup, yeah, I was feeling a little bit shorted on the defenseman side of things on who was going to be on our power play. And I felt confident putting Seider in number 2, but Petry could easily kind of take that spot now. But now for maybe one of the things that are obviously going to come with the age of 35 is Petry started to miss some games. Last 3 years, 61, 68, 55. And we looked into those injuries. One of them was due to a face injury, whether that's a stick or a puck, we weren't sure. We're not going to hold that against him too much. That's going to happen to just about anybody. But then we did see some upper and some lower body undisclosed. We weren't able to really find out what those were, but that's naturally going to happen with this age. And we already talked about in our over under video the concern of we had a lot of games missed last year, but this also kind of counters that right back, right? You're getting just another NHL caliber defenseman. So if someone does go down, you know that right now we kind of have 7 people, and that can kind of filter us into the next segment here. Is that this role on the team, what is he going to do for us? Competition for a starter spot. We now have 7 NHL defensemen. Just what, 6 hours ago or so, we had 6 NHL defensemen with 2 hopefuls in Lindstrom and Edvinsson. Now we have 7 NHL defensemen with a hopeful in Edvinsson this year. It got better after we lost Lindstrom. So yeah, that competition just went up a lot. For as strong as he is offensively and his power play stats and how well he can shoot the puck, that's another thing. We just looked up his highlights again, like we do with every new player we acquire. Guy's got a shot. It's not a powerful shot, but it's accurate.
It's a wrister. He likes his wrist shot a lot. I think in all the highlights there was one T clapper, which was a goal, and it was fine. It looked like any other one, but when it came to his wrist shots, it's accurate. The dude's hitting corners. I'm not saying he's going to go in, we're not trying to give the impression that he's going to be like prime Mike Green out there, but he's a guy that you can put on the power play and score some goals. He's not going to score a ton of them, but we didn't know this when we first started looking into this. He has a history of effectiveness on the power play on a team like Pittsburgh too. So it's not even like he was just thrown on a bottom barrel team that was just god awful and that's who they had on the power play. They actually had a team that had some offensive ability and he was contributing to that offense on the power play. That's a good sign for a team that doesn't have a lot of defensive options that have a proven history on the power play. And I want to just touch on what you said about the 7 NHL defensemen. I love what this does to training camp and the preseason. You've got, we'll be honest here, probably five or six maybe that are actually actively competing, worried about their job at this point.
Yep.
That's competition makes everybody better. So I think when it comes to preseason, you're going to see the defensemen step up. I don't think you're going to see too many players, even a guy like Mo Sider, who's a lock. Anyone who's watched a single interview, he's not going to go into this situation relaxed, feeling like he's comfortable with the job. One of the things we love about Mo Sider is that he's going to be a hard worker and he's going to strive to be the best in every scenario. So that, with that being my one lock, that then opens it up. You're going to have 7 guys who are actively competing like their job is on the line. And I think that also translates to what our offense is looking like. But right now we're talking about defense. I'm very excited for the competition that this adds to.
Yeah, that's hard to disagree with. I feel like it's going to make everyone better too. And just like to bring up some names, Edvinsson, Wallander, Johansson. Yeah, all those guys, they just knew that their path got a little tougher. But again, if that just means that they get a little more seasoning down there, and again, we're already talking about injuries are going to happen. This team has a bad history of them happening. I love that we're getting more NHL caliber talent on this team. We talked about it with the forwards. Now we're seeing it with the defensemen. Steve Yzerman was not done. I know we were kind of talking with ourselves on, do we think Steve's done? Well, you still have 7.3 million cap. We doubt he's done. He was not done.
Yeah. So, the dude checks boxes too. Yep. Adding another right-handed defenseman, this time for much cheaper, especially when you consider that we're only paying him 2.3. Oh my God, that's cheaper than I thought it was gonna be. Considering we're only paying the guy 2.3 mil, I mean, and he has all the benefits that we've talked about so far, and we have more benefits that we can't wait to tell you guys about coming up in this. Even just so far, this sounds like such a good deal. It feels like such a Steve Yzerman deal.
Yep, because we've already talked about how important, and you hear it from Lalone, you hear it from Steve on how important those special teams are. We talked about the power play. Here's a little surprise for everyone. As much as you think that this guy is offensively talented, and maybe that's just a one-dimensional part of his game, he has a great PK rating. We went to morehockeystats.com and we started looking up some more PK stats across this entire team. And I'm just going to try to ring these off for you guys real quick. Sherratt got a score of 136, Hall 135, Mata 85, Sider 76, Wallman 55, Lindstrom was a 48, and Gostisbehere was a 37. These are just the stats for last year. At the very top of the league on this list is Yanni Hakanpää on the Dallas Stars with a score of 290. So we're not elite across any of this, but when it comes to just matching what we already thought was pretty good on our PK last year, we're adding our 3rd best PK defenseman here. It's an excellent move for both sides of the special teams. And then to continue on some more stats websites, naturalstattrick.com, you're able to look up all the playing histories of defensemen and who they were paired with. And we looked back over the last few years, and he has a huge history of playing with defensive defensemen. Last year, he was paired with Pettersson on Pittsburgh. Before that, he was with Kulak and Sherratt on Montreal. He had 322 minutes in 50 games in the year 21 to 22. But it is important to note that it has also been Petry's worst offensive year at the same time. So they do have that playing history together, and I know that it would be important for us to find a spot for Sherratt on this team. I know a lot of people are critical of him. I think that's fair. I don't think it's fair to just throw him to the curb and say that it's a waste of 4.7 mil and we just got to eat that for the next few years. He has a place in the NHL. If you're trying to bring that guy in to try to spark Sherratt back up, I love it.
Yeah, if you're trying to salvage this contract with Sherratt, which has already been, like you said, super critical of, there's an expectation when you're paying the guy that much. I love that idea. I love the idea. This is exactly what we said when we realized how much time we'd played with Sherratt. is I love the idea of not giving up on Sherratt and trying to provide an opportunity for him to succeed. And what better way to do it than find someone who he has a history with? They can build on that chemistry. It simultaneously helps our defense in general. Even if the pairing doesn't work, just adding Petry to the lineup is going to help the Red Wings anyway, most likely. So it's really just a win-win, and it can only get better. It's either going to win or it's going to win-win.
Yep. And, you know, he's going to bring this very stereotypical things, a veteran presence in your locker room. I know that everyone says it about every older player that kind of enters in, but I think it's true. I think it does add some level of value. So if we're kind of like teetering off on the last couple things about him, I like that. If he does have success on a power play, I think it's a wonderful opportunity to teach someone who I think has a similar shot in Seider, or someone who can develop the shot. Seider doesn't take slap shots. Neither does Petry. If Petry's going to quarterback the second power play, maybe it is kind of the more veteran teaching on what to be looking for out there.
Yeah, I mean, as much as it sounds cliche, and we could say, yeah, it's definitely valuable. I think there's an added value to veteran presence when you have a diverse veteran presence. So every year it's like, oh, we added another veteran presence. Well, it's someone with different experiences, different outlooks, different opinions, different perspectives for your young players. And I think that's only helpful if you got a guy like Mo Seider getting, stories and advice from 4 different veteran defensemen versus just having one that he plays with every year for his first 4 years in the league. I think there's a lot of value to that. And I love that Eisman keeps these fresh veteran bodies coming in, and these minds are going to help out our young guys.
You know what else Steve is doing, Josh? When he's bringing in people, he's bringing in Michigan people. Maybe statistically the weakest argument we have for why we're so happy about this. This is definitely more emotionally charged in why it makes us happy. He was born in Ann Arbor. He was born in Ann Arbor, local boy, and it goes beyond that.
So you would assume, yeah, he probably went and played with Michigan with our boys Kopp and Comfort and all that, right?
Yeah, that's what we've been doing. We've been bringing in University of Michigan boys.
Nope. We got a Spartan in the locker room, baby. Let's go.
That rivalry game is going to have a little more spark in the Red Wings locker room again. I know in the past it was pretty strong when you had like Abdelkader, Glendening, and then you had like Larkin in there too. You saw a lot of fun like social content come from the team with that stuff. So yeah, bringing in an MSU alum is going to kind of be fun with that. But the more, I think, impressive part of all of it is that he's actually the son of Dan Petry, the Tigers pitcher on the '84 World Series champions. I know that doesn't add like a ton of value. I think it's just a neat little fact. Maybe one family can bring 2 different championships to one city. That'd be pretty cool.
Let us know what you think down in the comments. We'll see you there, and we'll see you in the next one.